Hello, all of you wonderful Go players. We are back with another Go game review, and today we have a 9Q versus a 12Q, and we will be reviewing for Black, who is the 12Q. So let's go ahead and get started. So we are seeing a very strong Shamari in 3-4 opening, and this opening is actually coming back into style nowadays. So if you're wondering how to play against the new styles, I actually recommend this one. It's actually quite interesting and pretty solid and easy to use and play. Alright, so this one's a little bit strange, but just play normal here. I would still, even if my opponent goes high, I would still play low, or maybe even 2-space here. But the idea is I would still play low and be kind of solid in here, because this Joseki I tend to like because of how solid it is. Now, the only reason I would really go high is if there was a massive Moyo or something, but in this case, I don't think that's the case. It's still open and stuff, so I think low is just easier to use and just typically better, especially if your opponent's stones right here, simply because if you go high, they can undercut you. So just go low. It's fine. Okay. So this is actually quite interesting. It looks like, okay, so we play the normal Joseki. It's actually like this, and then because it's a tiger's mouth, 2 stones can jump over 3, so it's a 3-space extension. But I think the idea of white was if I play here, it's 2 stones jumps 3, and I get to play 1 further. Very interesting thought. Very interesting thought, and I like the innovation, but it's completely incorrect because these stones do have a lot of weaknesses here, and you could easily get undercut, kind of like this with a peep, or just a direct peep and then cut. So there's a lot of problems here, so it's quite interesting to see this type of thinking, but unfortunately I'm going to disagree with it. Now, with that being said, your opponent did get closer to your Shamari, and normally you do want to extend from your Shamari if there's 2 star points. However, because this is 1 space closer, I'm not convinced that this is the right move. A 1-space extension from the Shamari does feel a little bit slow. So I would say go ahead and maybe undercut them, or go ahead and play a big move. Since this is on the 4th line, 2 4th lines do want to come down to the 3rd line to settle. So this is a very large move. Or you can play on the left side, which I think is the next open side. So either the big move, which is the most open side, or just settle your 4th line move. Now, I think the left side might be bigger, but either one of these or wedge, I think would be what I would expect to see here. You could also go here, but since both of these are on the 4th line and this is 4th line and 3rd line, it feels like the bottom is a little bit more active than the top. That's why I'm thinking here, but it doesn't really matter as long as you're playing on a big move, either on the left side or the bottom side. And the only reason the bottom side is big is because there's 2 4th lines. Otherwise, the left side is the big side to play on. Okay, we do bring it down. Maybe just here. I don't know. I've been tend to leaning against safer plays lately, so this is incorrect. You do want to bring it up. This is solid. 2 stones can jump 3 very easily and very safely, so this is the solid way to play. So this is a little bit passive. Okay. Very nice, very safe, very easy. Now, with this one's interesting. Because he already has a stone, so I'm surprised it's not an approach or an attach or some sort of invasion. But at the same time, if we go here and our opponent takes our 2 space, then there's a double wing, and a double wing is considered good for your opponent. So you can immediately 3-3, and white's position is going to look a little funny. So this is interesting. However, white didn't make it interesting, so we're just still seeing that we played on the left side, which may be the big move. It's either the top side or the left side. Since we played a big move, I'm not going to complain for a 12Q. I think it's nitpicking at that point. Okay, 2-space extension. We did play on the weak group. Now we're playing a reduction because this is not connected to our weak group. So it's not really doing anything with it. So this has to be playing on his position, which I'm going to consider this a reduction since it is the line of the influence. Now, with that being said, is a reduction really the correct idea here? I don't think so. I think the better idea is to either defend your weak group or to play the next big move, which is going to be on the top side. So you can maybe play through space. You can play here. Maybe you can threaten the corner and then play like this. And if he plays this way, you can just take the corner. So playing a big move, basically, or here, any of this, right? Play a big move or defend the weak group. Those are the two classy approach basics that I would expect to see here. So remember, open corners, open sides, largest area or largest framework is the big moves. And it goes weakness, then big moves. So your weakness, your opponent's weakness, then big moves. So if you think about those steps, those steps to playing efficiently, then this move doesn't quite make sense because it's not the biggest area, and it's not the open area, and it's not a weak group. So this one's a little bit off the mark. All right, so now we're playing here. It does look a little bit aggressive. Now, it is important to note in these touching battles, so at this level, that 12Q level, the most important thing to note in the touching battles is the cuts and connections. So we do want to immediately notice that you are not connected. With that being said, you are also trying to disconnect your opponent, which may be an interesting idea, but I want to say that it's good for your opponent because looks like there's an immediate net here. Even if there wasn't, there's a leaning attack here. And anything else just feels not good. So like, let's say we play this way. And if our opponent tries to capture us, we win the capturing race. So it doesn't look like we can cut it off any other way. And it doesn't really stay connected with us. So I'm going to say this one is not good. Even though it looks like you're trying to poke your opponent's shape to get some forcing moves for something, I'm going to say just play defensive and connect. When he plays like this, you can play this shape, which gives a double tiger's mouth. So this is a nice little shape to try and connect back a little bit, just to give yourself a little bit of connection shape. It's not perfect. There's still some Aji in it. But it's better than playing one space jump next to a stone, because this just immediately can get cut off. Even if there was something else, this stone I don't think is as big as these two stones. So it's unnecessary weakness, in my opinion. Alright, so it looks like black just immediately cut, or black did try to cut. Alright, and save the weak stones. Okay, then white fixed this cuts. Okay, and now we're playing over here. So again, this is kind of off the mark of what to do. So again, weak groups first, so maybe something like this, so you don't get all the forcing moves. And if you don't see a weak group, then you want to go for the big move, which is going to be the top side. Let's go over just a little bit more here. See if there's any other interesting things. I think we got enough to improve with this game. Okay, so this is interesting. So it looks like black is really liking this aggressive style. So black's a very powerful aggression. So let's think about that for a second. Okay. Dude. Yeah. Is that way you stay connected? Okay, so I think this is a good example of the bigger weaknesses that black has. So first off, I think there's two issues in this game. The first one is you're not really getting to the goals of the turns, or the correct goals, which is going to be your weakness, your opponent's weakness, then big move. And for big move, it's open corners, open sides, largest framework. So you haven't even finished the open sides yet, because there is still the top side. So I'm going to say that you don't really quite have the goals down every turn. With that being said, you do have a secondary thing as well, which is, it seems like you like to attack your opponent a lot. And I want to say that's a very powerful strategy. It can be very effective, and it is a style option that you can choose. With that being said, timing is important, so don't really attack things that aren't really attackable. If you see weakness and you want to attack it, that's fine. That can be a valid strategy. Timing is important, but it's a valid thing to consider and think about. But let's just assume that you are attacking correctly, or at the correct timing. One thing I don't really like about the attacks is how much weakness you are giving yourself when you attack. So when you attack, I recommend trying to stay solid with your attacks, because if your opponent can't really cut you off in any way, if you can attack your opponent by unsettling and surrounding them with solid connection shapes while also applying pressure, it's going to be a lot more powerful, because the more weakness you leave behind, the greater chance your opponent will have for a counterattack. And a counterattack is the best defense most of the time. So if you can defend yourself by making your opponent defend themselves, which means you play exchanges that force your opponent to defend themselves but also let you defend yourself, so nobody gets any profit, but everyone's defending themselves and everyone's getting stronger. That's kind of the best defense for your opponent and for you if you're under attack, because if both sides get strong and no one gets profit, it's good for the defender, because if the attacker is supposed to get free profit, because the attacker is supposed to be making positive exchange rates. So with that being said, let me rewind just a second back to reiterate what I just said, which is when you are attacking, don't leave weakness behind. That way your opponent cannot defend with counterattacks, which makes it harder for your opponent to defend, which makes it more powerful, or makes your attack more powerful. So if you play this way and he tries to run away, and you play this way, again, you can't be cut because of a Panuki right here, and he jumps, and you jump, and he jumps, and you jump, and he jumps, then you can potentially come back and attack this group somehow. And then let's say he runs away with something, right? However he's going to run away. So let's say you just do that. And he tries to run away, then doot, and then doot, and or anything. Let's just play some examples. You constantly are affecting the rest of the board, and your opponent's constantly getting 0 value, or 0 points. Potentially, you could change direction. Since you're connected here, you can change direction and go this way, and just keep getting points on the top side while your opponent's getting nothing. This is just rough examples, not these exact moves, of course, but the idea is you can get profit for free if you are solid and your opponent can't really do anything to counterattack. All your opponent can do, the only option your opponent has, is to simply run away. So as long as you gain value in any way while you're forcing your opponent to run away, then you are gaining profit and making a positive exchange rate attack, which is very powerful. The way to accomplish this, again, as I said, is to stay solid with your attacks while also unsettling and surrounding your opponents. But the less weakness you leave behind, the more powerful your attacks will be. So that, and again, the open corners, open sides, largest framework, as long as you can get the goals of the turn correctly, work on the timing of the attacks, and do these attacks in a way that you're not leaving as much weakness behind, I think you'll find this very helpful in your games in the future. So I really hope you found this helpful, and as always, guys, thanks for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed this and learned something from it, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.